So I'm going to show you how to groom a long-haired dachshund using a clipper. This is a second series in my grooming. So to start with, same as with the other one, we're using a peanut, which is a super small clipper. And we're going to do the inside of the ears. So just like in the first video where you saw me do this, I'm using it's a very small clipper. If you don't have a peanut, you can do this with straight scissors. Or if you have a clipper, you're going to want to use a blade that is at least a 15, maybe a 30. So you're doing the inside part of the ear. Very hard to see on the video, I'm sorry, just because my hand's in the way, but the clipping is essentially the parts you're not going to see when the ear is flipped forward. So you're doing the front part, and then if your dog has really hairy ears, Charles happens to have pretty hairy ears, I do the edges, and then you're going to go forward to where you can see I'm squeezing here where the ear and the face are separated. And all of this, like I said before, will be covered. So that's how you get to kind of see where the line is that you're trying to clipper. And moving on to the second side, same thing. Starting from the inner part of the ear, going towards the face. You're going to get it nice and tight against the ear. Again, all of this will be covered when the ear is forward. Even if you're not showing your dog, this is a great way to keep the ear clean, so that the hair doesn't trap the dirt inside. Like I said, on the other side, Charles has pretty hairy ears, so I actually like to take a little bit of the hair that's back towards the bottom and the side of the ear, again, always on the inside. So nothing that you're going to see when the ear is flipped forward. So that's peanut. That is the ear work that I do with a clipper. So now we're going to go to grooming the neck. This is an 8.5 clipper blade. It is a more unusual. Most of your clippers are going to come with a 10 blade. I think that's a little tight, so I prefer an 8.5. You're going to hold this like a pencil again, and doing the neck with a clipper is not as forgiving as with thinning shears. So remember, when you are trimming this, you're going to have to be doing this in advance. I recommend with an 8.5, it's the week before, or at least 2 or 3 days. Once you get the hang of this, it can actually be a pretty smooth look. You're going to start up by the underside of the neck. Remember, you're going to want to go up a little higher and then pull into the neck. You can see a nice blend there. It takes practice, but it can give you a very clean look. Oh, focus. There we go. So up here by the ear, you're going to go in and then up on the neck. So under the chin, down the neck, and you're going to approximately 2 to 3 fingers above the breastbone. So here I'll show you how I measure that. So you're going to take your fingers and you're going to go down to where the prosternum sticks out. And that's, you're going to decide how far down. Some people take it more, some people take it less. Some people do different angles. So I like to do between 2 and 3 fingers. So after I've gotten the initial part, now I'm doing the blend into the bottom. Now here's the tricky part. You're going from the tightest part, and then you're going to want to blend in to the part you're leaving. When you do that, you're going to want to take the clipper and pull it away from the neck as you blending in. So as you can see, I'm going down and then I pull away from the neck. This is how you blend it without there being a stark line at the bottom. So here I'm looking and I'm seeing, I think I might want to take it a little tighter. Again, you have to be careful when you do this because you want to make sure you pull it away from the hair at the bottom so that it's blending away so you're not getting a sharp line. When your dog is not cooperating, it is more challenging. So you can see at the very end how I'm pulling it away from the hair. That's how I'm blending into the bottom, so you don't see a noticeable line between the clippered part and the bib. This takes practice. Your first time through, it's not going to look great. So again, this is with the 8.5 blade. Now we're moving to a 10 blade. Some people prefer it much tighter. This is not my preference, but so I really think a 10 blade is a little tight, but if you want it tighter, then you can do a 10 blade. I recommend you do this at least a week before. You're going to see a pretty significant change in the color of his neck. If you didn't notice it with the 8.5, you'll definitely notice it with the 10 blade. If you're not going to use a 10 blade, you can skip forward and I'll show you how to finish up the ridges. But first, let me kind of show you the difference between an 8.5 and a 10 blade with a tighter clip. So as you can see, significantly more hair coming off. So same technique. Exactly the same technique. You want to make sure you're blending in at the top, which means pulling it into the neck and then tighter, and then as you get to the bottom, you're going to pull away from the hair. You can see here how I pull it away from the hair to blend in at the bottom. So you can see that's a much tighter cut. I find it to be very tight, almost like a setter. Here I'm trying to show you a difference. So as you can see on the right side, the hair actually still has some color to it. And then here to the left, you can see it's very light. So you can see that difference. I prefer an 8.5. You have a little more hair, you have a little more color. You can use a stone or a knife to, you know, take the fluffies out. But some people prefer it tighter, so I wanted to show the difference. Just remember, with a 10 blade, if you make a mistake, there's even less forgiveness. So take a look. This is what I want to show you. See that right there? When you don't blend, that's what you get. Big line. This dog isn't being shown, so I could make sure I give you guys some specific examples. So now, trying to finish up this side here, at some point I'm going to have to figure out how to blend into that. I will probably use thinning shears when I'm doing the ridges at the same time. Here in the sun, you're going to see how very light that neck is going to look. the hair with a 10 blade is very short. So if your dog does not have very thick hair, you could even see some skin. I really recommend you test this out well in advance before you decide how you're going to groom. You can always start with an 8.5 and then go to a 10 blade. Here I'm doing a little blending on that spot where I just cut right in there and made a big mark. There's a significant difference between using thinning shears and a clipper. Yes, the clipper can be faster, tighter. I don't think it's necessarily cleaner look. It's a different look, but it is also extremely less forgiving. So if it's your first time, give yourself advance so you're not doing this day or two before the show and trying to fix it if you have a mistake. So again, like I said, the technique is the same. You're using the same pattern, you're using the same technique, blend at the top, blend at the bottom. The top blending is much harder to make it look smooth just because you have dark hair and then very light hair. The bottom, the important part is you have that really long hair. So now you're going to do finish work. You need to use thinning shears, and you're going to have to do this all manually. In my opinion, you need to do it manually. You're going to blend in the top part of your neck with thinning shears. It's the same exact technique that I use when I'm doing the whole neck with thinning shears. A single cut, brush, see how it looks. What you're doing is trying to make this a smooth transition. And then when you get to the point where it looks good, then you might need to do some put the leash on and see how that all blends in. So again, this is that trouble spot I made for myself. So lots of thinning. Now here on the ridges, same technique that we had before. You're going to go from the very top. You're going to make the spot under the ear where we're taking the hair really tight. This is where your leash is going to go. And then you're going to work your way down the ridge. Now, since you've already taken the hair on the underside of the neck really tight, you don't need to be doing as much thinning from the back to the front or from the back of the neck towards the front of the neck. So I just started with a top cut of the ridge. This is where I'm kind of working with the ridge itself. Brushing back and forth. Now I'm going to go from the front to the back. Single cut. I'm working my way down. And this is where you want it to blend in and you're making a nice clean look. This dog hasn't been groomed in approximately 2 months. So single cuts all the way down, then you're going to brush. And we're going to top cut again. This is the same exact process that we used the first time when I was using just straight thinning shears. So much harder to get a clean blend. What you're going to have is a pretty stark line. I just like to make that line as clean as possible. And then I have a stripping knife. So I'm using this to take out the undercoat on the thick side of the hair. So this is the back of the neck, the side of the neck that wasn't touched with the clipper. Remember, 45-degree angle. You're going to pull it against the skin, use it as a rake or a comb. You're not grabbing the hair and pulling it out. So again, the same thing on the other side. We're blending in where the clipper starts for the neck. So you do a little more aggressive cutting. Well, I do a little more aggressive cutting to try and get this to look better, cleaner, more smooth transition. But you're still doing the same thing where you're going under the hair, cutting, and then brushing. And when a dog is not cooperative, you just kind of work with it. So same thing that I did on the other side. We're going to top cut, and then we're going to take out all that hair under the ear where the leash is going to go. Brush, thinners, again, doing the top cutting, trying to make that transition as clean as possible. When you put him back in the noose, you can see how the line is under the ear. At this point, I'm just doing the basic raking and getting the fluffies out. And then at this point, you can go back to the original video that was on Grooming a Longhair Dachshund, where it's going to show you how to do everything else. So this is how I do a Longhair Dachshund with a clipper. And I hope it was helpful.